Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. Today I want to do my top 10 books of 2017, so let's get started. These are in a particular order, so they're ascending from, I don't want to say least liked because I loved all of these. So they're ascending from most memorable, and they're ascending from least memorable and least effective to most memorable and most effective. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's how we're gonna go with it, because I know. It took me forever to put these into an order, just so you know. Like, it was a problem. So, the first one is The Glasstown Game by Catherine Valenti. I adore this novel. This is the story of the four Bronte siblings and their experience going to Glasstown, which is a made-up game world that they created on their own. There is historical evidence that the Glasstown really was a game that they created, and there is many a show of how they did it. It was almost like a D&D kind of game where they wrote down all of the twists and turns and how things went down and who the characters were and what the experiences were within the characters and how they handled things and their stories of each characters, and it was just really in depth and really well fleshed out. I so loved this book. I think that for me, Catherine Valenti, I read a lot of this year, and I plan to continue reading her in the new year. I think that overall, she is a beautiful writer and a really lovely person. I've met her before twice, and she is the sweetest human. I adore her. I really think that for me, The Glasstown Game is one of her better works. It is really well accomplished and really well thought out and really well fleshed out. It is also really well researched. I adored it, and as a result, I love the Brontes even more than I did. I have so much love for Charlotte and so much love for Anne and Emily, and I really, and I mean, okay, I love Branwell too, like their brother. I really do, but he turned out to be kind of a twat as he got older, so I find it is hard to find him so admirable and adorable. But in this book, he really tries to be a good brother and a good man, and he really tries to be an adult in certain situations where it is called for, and I really appreciate that. So I recommend this book if you are a Bronte fan of any sort of statue and you want to know more about their life as children, and you want to just find a magical way to experience their experience and go through their childhood play with them. Then we have Grace by Natasha Dion. This book was breathtaking, and it made me so happy to read. Even though it's a really immersive and devastating tale, I really found it to be one of the best books of the year, of course, because it's in this list. But it was one of the first books that I read in the year, and it has stuck with me this entire time. It is the story of a woman who, in the first chapter, is murdered. And her baby is found by a man who raises the child. And the rest of the story is her ghost telling you, one, how her child is being raised and the experience that her daughter is having as she is a Black woman in the South. And two, what her experience was as a woman when she was alive during slavery. And I just so adored this. It was so beautiful, so wonderful, and so exquisite. And I found it to be a really profound and eloquent novel that really stood out, and I really am surprised that more people haven't read this. I think it's really well executed and such a beautiful story, and I think that anyone who is interested in a slave narration, this is a really interesting take on it, and I really recommend it. This one, I did not know how I was going to put this in the system. Like, I was unsure because I knew it was going to be in my favorite books of the year, but I didn't know where it was going to land. So it lands on number 3. This is Shirley Jackson, A Rather Haunted Life by Ruth Franklin. Now, this book has inspired me to read every piece of Shirley Jackson that I can get my hands on next year, which is a goal. And that is a really big feat to have come out of just reading one book that was only about the life of the author. I really found Shirley Jackson to be an intelligent, well-rounded, honest, and thoughtful human. I think she was so brilliant and so riveting and so wonderful. And I really, really believe that as a person, she was freaking fantastic. She really, really blew my mind and felt so real to me, and I really wish I could have met her in person because I just feel like there was an energy there that was undeniable, and a passion and a drive that was so unrelenting and so beautiful, that really, really was just to the core brilliant. And I am so excited to have found this nonfiction and to have dived into it and to have really experienced Shirley Jackson at the best and core of what she was for a being. This talks about the history of her family, the history of her husband, the history of herself and her children. And I really, really think it is an in-depth, well thought out, and probably one of the best biographies I have ever read. I highly recommend it. Then this beauty was, of course, a Mothbox, because why wouldn't I have a Mothbox book in here? Because I love Mothbox. And I absolutely adored this book. I was also sent it for review by Coffee House Press, who I will link down below. Thank you so much to Coffee House Press. They sent this to me as well for review, but I had already received it from the Mothbox, so I ended up with 2 copies of it, but I'm sorry, I am not giving away my other copy because it is beautiful. The 2 copies together on my shelf, just perfection, sheer perfection. I love this book so much that I want to own it twice. It is so fantastic. It is a short story collection that is speculative and fabulous and wonderful and magical realism and just dystopian goodness. And it is compared to Angela Carter and Margaret Atwood. You can't go wrong with that. It is just so exquisite and so well thought out. It has one of my all-time favorite stories in it. I really, really enjoyed it, and it was... I think it was The Doll's Alphabet. The title story, which was just brilliant and absolutely wonderful. I highly recommend this series if you haven't read it yet. It is by Camelia Grandova, and I think it is just exquisite, and I love, love, love it, and I so recommend it. Then we dive into the world of Boston. This is The Unseen World by Liz Moore. This book is just, it's wonderful, and it's so well executed and so exquisite and so different. It's just this wonderful story about a young girl named Ada whose father disappears after something happens to him that changes his perspective on his given situation. And she has been left a puzzle by him that she is meant to solve that'll answer some questions about her father. And this book really, really talks about the experience of aging and what that does to a person, especially one who has been very, very reliant on their brain for their job and life. It really addresses some really darker topics, some really well thought out topics, some really overwhelming and exhausting topics. It was just exquisite. I loved it, and it was really, really beautiful and really, really well done. I just adored it. And I think that honestly, anyone who hasn't read this yet really needs to. It's just a really well executed book, and I highly recommend it. All right, this is kind of a cheat because it hasn't come out yet. It comes out on the 16th of January, so you guys don't have long to wait. This is The Red Clocks by Lenny Zumas, and I flippin' loved this book. I might actually have loved it more than The Handmaid's Tale. Blasphemy, I know, but this book is just so excellent and so perfect, and I just adored it, and I really, really think it's fantastic. It follows 4 women who are all in different situations in this newfound world where abortion is illegal and artificial insemination is illegal. These 4 women are trying to survive this world the best they can, and they're trying to get as much out of their life as they possibly can, even though they have now been kind of shut down into this place where their own bodies are not their choice and their own experiences are not their choice. And it's really, really well done. I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it. If you like dystopian, this is fantastic. If you liked The Handmaid's Tale, this is fantastic. I really recommend it, especially if you're on the Handmaid's Tale kick like I am. Then this beauty, I just can't say enough good things about this. This is Her Body and Other Parties by Cameron Maria Machado. I love this. I love this. It is so beautiful and so well done. And the first short story in this collection is what's it called? The Husband's Stitch, and it is my all-time favorite short story of all time. That one story, all-time favorite. I don't know if it'll remain my all-time favorite when I read Shirley Jackson's short story collections, but for right now, it is my all-time favorite short story. And I think that this collection is consent and women's bodies and the experience of women and the experience of men and the experience of humans and the experience of life. And it has a really, really interesting story, which is a retelling and restructure of Law & Order SVU, which was really interesting. I am a big fan of Law & Order SVU, so that was lovely to experience. Very dark, very twisted, very weird. But yeah, I just think this is so fantastic, and I highly recommend it to everybody. I think that this is a really, really great collection for those who like fabulous and strange and speculative fiction. Then we have Hunger by Roxane Gay, a memoir of my body. This broke me. This just destroyed me. And it was so hard to read and so difficult and so breathtaking and just so draining. And I recommend every draining, tired, stressed out moment of it. I think that it is one of the most important memoirs to come out this year. I think that it really talks about the body and the experience of a body, and the experience of women, and the experience of those who are overweight, and the experience of rape victims and rape survivors. It talks about food, it talks about the appreciation of food and what it does to you and how it can control your life and how your weight can control your life. This is just excellent. Like, I recommend this to everybody, even though it is one of the hardest books I have read this year. I think that for me, this was just undeniably the best nonfiction that I have read in years, and I highly, highly recommend it. All right, down to the last 2. These 2 are a tie because I couldn't decide. I will try not to mention this again next year as my favorites, because I will be rereading this again next year because it's a Shirley Jackson. So it'll be read a second time to kind of go over after having read the biography. But This is The Bird's Nest by Shirley Jackson. This is the story of Elizabeth, who is a young woman who has a pretty ordinary life, and she lives with her aunt, who is a little controlling, and she has a mental condition, which is DID, which is the condition that I have. And this is a dark, twisted, scary, wonderful, awful, disturbing portrayal of my illness. This is wicked intense. It is really strange and unusual, but it has some really honest depictions of DID, and it has some really screwed up ways of looking at DID. So it's not perfect by any means, but it is some of the most accurate conversation about DID and what it really stands for, and what it really does to a person. I highly recommend it. I think that if you like scary books, this is great. This is fabulous. If you don't like scary books, it's still fabulous. It's just a little sketchy. I definitely think that it's one that anyone who's curious about DID should read, but know that it is not an 100% accurate depiction. It is well done, and it is well crafted, and a lot of the aspects of it are accurate. But there is one element to it that I do not agree with. But I can't tell you because that's a spoiler. If you would like me to do a spoiler review of this, then I will. Let me know in the comments down below. But otherwise, yes, I just highly recommend this. And our final book, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This just got increasingly darker as the video went on. I just realized this. Like, it went from, like, happy middle grade book to, like, we're going to the bell jar. This is, we're going dark. It is, like, this is how my brain works, guys. This is about the most accurate depiction of how my brain goes I think I've seen in a long time. How my spirals go. Like, my spirals go from, like, whoa, we're super happy, and we're reading about children, and we're talking about magical lands, and then we spiral right down into, like, oh my god, we're in the bell jar, we're going to a mental hospital, this is fucking crazy. Yeah. So, if you don't know what the bell jar is about, it's about a young woman named Esther, who is this really charismatic, really well-adapted, smart, intelligent, wonderful woman. And you follow her descent into madness. I don't really know how else to explain it. You follow her anxieties and her depression and her darkness and her sadness and her depravity and her fears and her worries, and you follow it all, and you feel it, and you just sense it, and this is just anxiety and depression at its height, and it really depicts it well, and it really executes it well, and I think that it is definitely my all-time favorite book of, like, ever at this point. I really thought as a child, not as a child, but as a young woman, that if you liked the bell jar, you were this strong, wonderful, intelligent, fabulous feminist who's just like, rule the world, rawr. And I always expected that those would be the women I'd look up to. I never thought that I'd say that my favorite book was The Bell Jar, because I just always thought it was for those women who were super intelligent, super smart, super eloquent, and super feminist. Like, I didn't think that it was something that I would ever be tangibly able to understand and read. And now I have, and it's my favorite book of all time. So I'm really wondering, have I hit that goal that I had of being a feminist, strong-willed, honest, intelligent female. Like, have I hit that? Or am I just kidding myself and think that I'm that type of person? So I don't expect answers, but like, I honestly never thought in a million years that this would be even remotely my favorite book, just because I never thought I would be smart enough to call this my favorite book. But I got lucky and I was able to read it, and I read it in a day and I completely devoured it, and it destroyed me, and I recommend it highly. I mean, everyone should read this. I think it is really, really beautiful. And I think that I really want to read a biography on Sylvia Plath and get to know her more and read more of her books, read more of her work. Yeah, overall, I think that it's just wonderful, and I really, really wish to read more Sylvia Plath, and I think that's going to be another goal of mine in 2018. So yeah, highly recommend. That is everything. Long video. Sorry about that. Yeah, those are my top 10 books of 2017. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, click that subscribe button. And if you have any questions, comments, or quandaries, go ahead and leave them down below, and I will see you all in the new year. Bye!